Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Merch Hunter Ricky here, and we are talking about Fabricant 100 chapter 35, which honestly was a pretty good chapter. I genuinely like the, I'm just gonna flat out make the comparison, Barbenheimer. It's weird, they made this guy literally Oppenheimer and he makes toys. Someone in my Discord pointed it out to me, and it's just like weirdly a Barbie feel to it as well, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But let's just start off with the entire video. Let's start off with the whole chapter rather. So the chapter starts off with Fabricant 100 walking up a staircase into a room where Fabricant 1 is talking mad crap about how Fabricant 99 was like sucky and not like a good model in a way. I forgot the exact wording he used, because the doctor's flashback kind of like really took the presence of my mind, you know. But she then tells Fabricant 1 like, hey, listen, Fabricant 99 sucked because of you, not because of him. The way you stitched him back was not good, you know. And the amount of quick work she made out of him, or rather a Shibi using her flames, was one thing, but the fact that he was, you know, his core was like the centerpiece of an entire organization and he just got eradicated like that. They should have maybe thought through, because now Mort Safe has no ways to ignite sparks within agents now, right? So it really does feel like there is a wrap up coming soon. But anyways, he gazes out a window, Fabricant 100 that is, and she tells Fabricant 1 that the answers to the ideal human lie in the doctor's journal. And we start with his flashback, of course, where the doctor is introduced as a nameless man who was a scientist during a war period of a bunch of different countries, and his country allowed him to make weapons at his leisure, basically, and he ended up making bombs. These bombs were rapidly successful in the war. However, they did not ensure the victory of his country. His country lost. Everyone pointed fingers at him like, oh, you're the villain, you suck, this is your fault, you killed all those people. And I mean, if you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, well, you already know where this is going, right? And if you've seen the Barbie movie, and if you saw them both, you will start to feel massive vibes pretty soon here. So after everything that happens with the war, the bomb, and him getting blamed, the doctor hides on an island where he pretends to have amnesia. This allows him to kind of like blend in and commingle with the villagers without having to feel guilt. And weirdly enough, it just works. The villagers are none the wiser on this island, and it makes sense. If they're removed from the world in a way, they wouldn't necessarily know a guy who might or might not have been on the front page of the news, right? So he pretends to have amnesia, and for the most part, he is a pretty messed up person. He has a bit of an awakening during this little island arc that we're about to get into, and it starts with him kind of just talking to the villagers, and they're always trying to give him a name, and they even want to call him Doctor, I think, because he's treating some of the islanders, and he just doesn't like the affection at all. You know, he's thinking that like he's a little bit above them and they're unworthy of his time in a way. And after a while, a woman named Saya starts, and there's that name again, and now we know who she is, named to the face. She starts providing him with apples. And the significance of these apples is that I think he made a toy for a child first, a little airplane. And then she, in return, gave him apples, which he was like, the toy I provided that child had nowhere near the value of these apples. And it, you know, it makes you wonder, like, why are these apples so important? Is there not food on the island? And it turns out that is exactly what's happening. That there was a great famine because of the war. A lot of the fields are now inert. They don't, you know, yield fruit anymore. And because of that, the lack of harvest, all that's left is a singular orchard that bears apples. And because of this, the villagers have to ration the apples out very, very, very sparsely to each villager. And due to the doctor continuing to make toys, the woman Saya provides him with apples regardless of who he gives the toy to. And The doctor has a very selfish nature at first. After he gives the first toy, he's like, oh, so I just got to keep making toys and I can just give them out to the villagers and they'll give me apples. But that's not what happens. He's giving out the toys and he's not receiving apples at first, and he feels a little upset about it. And he's like thinking like, these ungrateful villagers, I'm making the toys, aren't I? And then that's when he starts to get the awakening, the wake up call, is because Saya is actually going to bat for him with the village, and she is saying like, hey, we should include him in the rationing of these apples. And that is when he kind of like has like a wake up call, and he starts wanting to be a better person, and he starts wanting to, live a more human life. He lives on the outskirts of this village, like very far away from them apparently. And one day he wakes up to a very rude awakening. The last of the bombs he developed blew up the village entirely. And we see a hand coming out of the rubble and him with like a mortified look. And then this is where we get his motive. This is where we figure out why he needed to make fabricants. And it's because he wanted to, I wouldn't say save the villagers' corpses. Like I forgot what, like the chapter was such a like a mind fuck to me with the Oppenheimer and the Barbie reference. Like it feels like it was so there, and it's hard not to say like, is this a coincidence that the movies came out and this is a chapter about a doctor who makes bombs and toys, right? It's weird. Like if it was a coincidence, that is crazy, and if it's not a coincidence, this is a very awkward like shoehorn, But regardless, so he starts to collect the bodies of the villagers, and he starts to cut off parts, the best parts, quote unquote, of each villager. This is to ensure that he can try to revitalize them in some way, shape, or form. And at the very last page of the chapter, we get all the corpses wrapped up and whatnot, and he's about to start making the ideal human. And as you can see, this is because of a flawed logic that he has developed within himself. He has a very huge ego at the start of this chapter, and it begins to lessen and lessen as the chapter goes on, only to be bitten in the ass by the weapon that he created on the people that he was beginning to love. And because of this, we don't know how long this flashback will go for. We don't necessarily know if he was in love with Saya, or if just her kind-hearted nature caused him to just have a change of heart and want to be a nice guy, no strings attached to her. And the fact that his own weapon rained down on him caused him to finally break. He then started doing weird Frankenstein shit, and honestly, I'm all for it. Like, I genuinely like this chapter, regardless of longevity of the series. I think this chapter alone was a very good one, and honestly, it could have opened the series. Genuinely, I think there would be no harm done if this was chapter 1, not with Fabricant 100 and Fabricant 1 and all that, but just simply this. And it's okay that it's come this late, because it's honestly quite early in the series. Like if someone were to start the series now and binge it, right, they would only take them like a couple hours, maybe a whole day to read all 35 chapters. They're not long, and they're not hard. Sometimes there's hardly any words spoken in a chapter, right? So for the most part, I'll give this chapter a straight up 90%, very solid, very to the point, and it really had some good things to chew on. Like I said, the Oppenheimer Barbie vibes, they're scary. Is it a coincidence, or did he do this? Did he do this on purpose? Was this not in the works 3 chapters back? And you know what I mean, like, was a while back, was this not in the works around chapter 20, or did you start the series and you always wanted the Doctor to have this backstory? Because honestly, it's very, very coincidental, to the point where I kind of can't shake the feeling that whatever he had coming for the Doctor, he changed to make a Barbenheimer reference. That's just me. Could be wrong. It could eat my words in an interview or something like that later, where he reveals that he always wanted the Doctor that way, and the timing was just impeccable, right? But man, it was a good chapter, and it's just funny because, we're always doom and glooming on this series, but we don't really see an end in sight, Like, look at Dororon. That one ended in like 30 chapters flat. We are 5 past that, and I know some manga get axed around chapter 50, chapter 60, But it makes me wonder, will we last past chapter 40, right? I'm going to give it till chapter 40 before I start doom glooming on this channel again. Honestly, I want to know what Ashivi's up to. I know he's passed out and he can't heal, and he took some significant damage from the flames and just gassing himself fighting Fabricant 99. Like that's cool. And you know what? Props to him for taking out his first Fabricant kind of all on his own, right? Without the flames of 100, he wouldn't have been able to do it, but he did still stand his ground and fight. His hard work and training paid off. He was able to punch through the ice and all that, and I thought that was cool. And how this chapter kind of like I really like the artistic feel of Fabricant 100 gazing out the window as the flashback starts, right? With Fabricant 1 kind of like at her feet, and he's like on his hands and knees thinking that, hey, it's all come to an end now. And, he's trying to tell her, he did tell her at one point in this chapter, like, okay, well, there goes your ticket to becoming the ideal human. Hey, why are you so calm? And then that's when the flashback of the doctor starts. So obviously the flashback continues next chapter. It has to. If it doesn't, I'll be upset. But what I want to know is, Fabricant 1, was that his first Fabricant and it's pieces of these villagers? Because whoa, that's dark. And, Fabricant 100, is that also pieces of these villagers? Because, she's a whole 99 Fabricants later from Fabricant 1. So there's a lot to think about, But honestly, it was a great chapter. I like the feel of the doctor of being just an asshole. He shouldn't be likable. I like when a villain is a villain. Unlikable, a dick. You want to punch him in the face as fast as possible, but you can't because he doesn't exist in reality. All those things make a good villain. Like, not liking the affection of children, peak. That's good shit right there. And, don't make him all sentimental while making these Fabricants too much, because I think that will lessen away from his overall creepy and asshole-ish nature. And as usual, at the risk of becoming redundant, I liked the chapter. Barbenheimer vibes were there. Fabricant 100 had some cool art in this chapter of her gazing out the window. Fabricant 1 got his, he got dealt. And we're going to find out what the ideal human is, I assume next chapter, if not the chapter after. What the doctor was thinking when he was stitching these Fabricants together to make the ideal human. And honestly, it's probably going to come down to personality, right? I don't think it's about the parts. He just, he's crazy. His village got blown up. The people he was starting to like are gone, and it's all his fault. The whole way over, the whole world over hates him. So he went crazy and he made Fabricants. Anyways, I'm Merch Hunter Ricky. Really appreciate the views and all that. You guys have a good night, okay?